So we'll go ahead and get started. Um, on behalf of the center, I'd just like to welcome Bonnie to our center virtually. She's also relatively close, so hopefully, maybe in the next year or two, we could also have her come on over and teach for us in person at some point. I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of our association with Bonnie over the next many years. Bonnie is the founder, one of the founders of study group in Austin, and was the SPC of Land of Medicine Buddha. So she's had a long career in FPMT as a teacher and offering service in a variety of capacities. So we're grateful that she was able to accept our invitation to teach. And like I said, I hope this is just the first class that she teaches for us. And so I just wanted to thank Bonnie for being here and say welcome, and over to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'm really grateful to be here. I, as Venerable mentioned, I have a long history with FPMT, with Lama Zopa Rinpoche specifically, but it has been a while since I've offered any kind of formal service or taught. So this is a wonderful opportunity for me, and I'm delighted to be here. Also, really happy that it's an introductory kind of course, which I think, in my mind, always wonderful to kind of revisit those things. I can say, I guess I should be ashamed to admit that early on in my Buddhist career, I took courses and then I would decide, well, I already have that one. I don't need to hear that topic again. Yeah. And now, 20 some years later, there is absolutely nothing that I don't think is worth revisiting over and over and over again. And in fact, that's really what meditation is. So again, I'm really delighted to be here. And I would love to just kind of hear a little bit about each of you, why you're interested in taking this course, and maybe just a little bit about your path and meditation experience, if you don't mind. And maybe we'll go, I don't know that we're all seeing everyone in the same order. So Paolo, you were on first. So if you don't mind, would you mind starting?
Um, I, I wasn't expecting. Just give me a minute here.
Sorry.
Well, um, sorry, Bonnie. Um, I um, I just appreciate these classes because I have an incredible amount of physical and mental work going on at the moment, and they're actually a lovely, lovely pause in the day where I have to stop, which, as you said, it's a kind of meditation aspect as well, isn't it? The having to stop and, yeah. So that I have, obviously, I'm fairly old, so I've done a little bit of this, but I'm actually terrible at meditation. And the reason is I have one of these very flighty minds that worries and frets and so on. So any help, Bonnie, bring it my way. Thank you. That's it.
You will hopefully we'll help each other. Venerable, I'm assuming everybody knows you, but on my screen, you're next. So if you wouldn't mind, especially
Sure.
since this is our first time meeting, I'd love a little intro.
Sure. My name is Dundrup, and I'm the center manager at Tupton Norbu Ling in Santa Fe. I got involved in FPMT in 2010 at Guya Samaja Center in Virginia and offered service there until last year when I moved here to Santa Fe. My teacher said it would be beneficial for me to accept their offer to work for them. So did that, and been here since October of last year. Took ordination in 2013. So yeah, that's me.
Wonderful. I rejoice. I rejoice in your ordination and in your service. for the brief time that I actually lived at Land of Medicine Buddha, it was one of the most wonderful opportunities I've ever had. You know, it's being a practitioner outside of a center is challenging, but being a practitioner in a center, it's just, you get to see your mind, I think, in a unique way. So wonderful opportunity. I'm happy for you. Suzanne, you're next on my screen, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. I live, by the way, right next to Land and Medicine Buddha in Monterey. And it was during the pandemic, I started taking Buddhist classes seriously because I could get them on Zoom. And that's the first time I ever, quote unquote, visited Land of Medicine Buddha. I started going online regularly and then found all of these other places, TNL, Santa Fe, and Diamond Light in Sacramento. And anyway, but I've sort of been Buddhist for a long time, but not in a systematic way. I used to live in Hawaii and would go to the Buddhist temples there sometimes, and just really, I bought a Buddhist Bible and studied it, but I think it came from a Zen perspective. So, but like I say, it wasn't until a pandemic I got really serious about it. And I find while I'm taking this class, I can't take enough meditation, beginning meditation, because I learn so much every single time. And it just helps me with my work. It helps me with trying to cope with everything going on in this society. And it's very important to me. So that's my story.
Wonderful. Thank you and welcome. And how wonderful that you're near a center, but also the, you know, silver lining of the pandemic. I think for many people, there was like a reset in priorities, and so many things, you know, that were offered remotely kind of opened up a lot of doors for people. So that's wonderful. Welcome, welcome. And then Sha, am I saying your name correctly? Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
Sorry, for some reason my touch screen is not functioning. The battery is going a little low. Yes, you're saying it right. It's just soft. It means rosy clouds. For me, I think I grew up with it. My stepfather was Japanese, and so he practiced more Zen Buddhism. And then my mother was probably, I guess, she was kind of a personal combination of Taoism and Confucianism. So I've grown up with a lot of those habits and things like that. One of my best friends is Chinese, and he's always teasing me, like, the filial piety is just in my bones. That's the way we were raised. And likewise, I share that the pandemic reset priorities. Definitely, you know, you wanted to dig into things, and I think take those special things in your life to a deeper level. Because for me, I just grew up with it. It was kind of casual. And my family wasn't really religious, so I would just follow my stepfather, and he was probably more religious than anyone else. So I just learned from him as much as I could. And as the others, I think having things on Zoom is kind of nice, because like now it's like somebody else said, I forgot who it was, said it tonight, is that you have to slow down, you have to stop and things like that, and really take that time. And for me, I meditate decently, but I guess I just kind of sit and I try to think through things in a constructive way. And I like to expand on that. That's kind of just where I'm at. Maybe 15, 20 minutes, I'll sit and focus. But I like this, like you said, as a beginner class, because it's going to teach you a format or whatever it is, you know, that you can dig deeper into that practice.
Wonderful. Well, it's so great to meet you. Niwe Shwa Putonghama.
Oh, I am just learning. I think your
Me
pronunciation is better. The tones I think I'm gonna need meditation for the tones.
Oh, I hear you on that. Yeah. So that probably speaks volumes about me, that I don't want to. I'm doing the Pimsleur method, and every time I hear a tone, I'm like, I think I'm saying it the way that they are, but I'm not sure. So
Stern has a really good class too.
Wonderful. So welcome everyone. You know, we've kind of talked a little bit about this, but everybody has a different sort of motivation for being here. I mean, obviously it's a meditation class, so there's an interest in that. and various levels and degrees to which we're interested in that. Typically, these classes mostly start out doing formal prayers. Because this is like a real intro class, what I'd like to do is maybe give a little bit of an explanation about sort of what we do in terms of prayers and motivation. And that's the traditional way to start every class, is kind of coming up with your motivation. So there's, smaller motivations, and then there are deeper, more profound motivations, wanting to be, for meditation especially, wanting to be clear or able to concentrate, or having peace of mind. There's so many things, so many benefits of meditation. But there's also this idea that through getting to know our own minds, we can actually take on more, we say, virtuous qualities, or, better qualities of mind, and be able to be of broader service to other beings. And so I guess I'd like to say, ask us all maybe to start, just take a minute or two to tap into what you would say is your highest motivation or reason for being here. And then when we're going through the initial exercise, I'd like you to kind of think about that as the reason that you're doing it. Bring ourselves back. The first classes that I went to were in person, and especially for in-person classes, I think, I used to say, well, there's all kinds of reasons that we could be here today. We could maybe don't have anything to do, or there's, a good-looking person in the class, or I don't know. There's so many different reasons that we can be gathering here today. And I think many of them are wonderful reasons. And I think probably there is a profound, deep reason. Sometimes we're even afraid to give voice to like our highest aspiration and our highest motivation, because we don't always have the confidence. It almost seems not arrogant, but a little too ambitious. But I think this is the place to give in to those kinds of ambitions, and to feel free to be able to actually express those highest motivations. Like we would say, helping every living being to be free of suffering. And obviously, or maybe not so obviously, in order to do that, we have to first free ourselves. So meditation is really the foundation, actually, of all Buddhist teachings. Because, we say, when we talk about Buddhist teachings, you've probably heard this analogy of the pot, and how, it can be filled, but if the pot is dirty, then it's worthless. If the pot is leaking, it's worthless. And so what does that mean? Well, dirty would be like some kind of negative motivation, but the leaking pot I always could relate to, because it's, where you hear these precious teachings, or you get instruction, and then because you don't habituate your mind, meditation, you can actually lose those things. So that's the reason we're here today, is kind of to develop the mind that can actually hold the meditation. So before I talk too much, let's go ahead and do the first couple of exercises. So I think you have a handout, but I'm going to just go ahead and briefly sort of lead you through it. Some of you may be familiar with the 7-point meditation posture. We can put that aside for now, and we'll talk about that in detail later on in this class. But for now, maybe just if you could sit with most important thing is that you're comfortable. And then if you can have your spine as straight as possible. And now we're going to do something called scanning the body. And what we'll do is start at the lower half of your body and just bring your awareness there. Notice where your body is touching the ground or your seat. Notice if there's any discomfort or tension there. And then pay attention to the character or the quality of your mind when it's in that place. Your legs and your seat. And then move up in your body. Become aware of where your body is touching other parts of your body, the sensation there. And then release any tension. Your arms. Your torso, your spine. And just go through your body and just notice your neck. Try to release any tension that might be there. Your face. Your eyes. And then when you get to the top of your head, in the crown area, pause and see if your mind feels different in this place when you're focused on that. And then moving down, doing the same. Notice any sensation, any discomfort, relax. Back down again through your arms, your hands. Just paying attention to what's happening. And then moving down again to the bottom part of your body, your legs, your seat, the place where your body is meeting the ground or your chair. And then notice the quality of your mind in that grounded place. Is it different? And now hopefully you're relaxed and your mind is shifted a little bit into neutral. And now we're going to bring our focus on the breath. And we're just going to count our breaths in and out. And putting our attention at the tip of our nose, at the nostril, where our breath is entering and leaving. And then just counting your breaths. See if you can count to 10. And every time you become distracted, you can bring your mind back and start again, focusing on that place where your breath is coming in and going out. Don't follow your breath, just that tip of your nose, nostril. And let's do that for a few minutes. If you find your mind wandering, just bring it back to your breath. Start again. And now if you would like, you can kind of come back to the larger space, the room. And then I'd love to hear kind of what your experiences were. So the first exercise, the scanning the body. I don't know if anyone would like to share kind of what that exercise, what the experience was for them. If there was anything that they found that you found helpful or interesting or challenging.
Well, Bonnie, my mind always wanders. That's part of the challenge. Like Paula was saying, I think you mentioned it, Paula. And it helps to refocus, come back to a certain moment. And it really helps me to focus on posture, especially my head and a tendency that I'm working at a desk. So it helps me a great deal to think about my posture and then the relaxation. We do it in stages. So that was a very good meditation. I felt very relaxed and focused.
Is that a preliminary kind of meditation that you've done before, or?
Yes, we do that in the Vajrasattva every evening. I'm not there every evening, but
Wonderful.
it's really very good the way she tells us to sit, the occipital bone. I mean, everything is so detailed. It's really wonderful. That has helped me a lot.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anybody else want to maybe share anything that they, just very simple exercise, I know, but sometimes the simplest things we are not so simple.
I do yoga, so I'm very, well, quite experienced at following the body. And so working with the physical is much easier for me. So any kind of physical instruction like that, I can, it allows me to go to the different parts of the body and really, really get a strong relaxation, or should I say a release of tension in all areas. And if it's a directed kind of guidance like the one you gave, it just makes it so much easier. We don't even have to think about it. We can just go there and release and be ready for the mental part, which for me is much more difficult.
Yeah, sometimes the challenge of sort of leading through something like that is, I don't know, are you finished? Are you still in your seat? I don't want to take you somewhere else if you're still in that place, but just kind of running through to sort of get some familiarity with that as a way of sort of shifting our minds and getting that stability. Anybody else have anything that they want to share without being sort of put on the spot?
Sure. I do yoga too, so I'm familiar with the body scanning, but it also helped me. And I'm so sorry, I'm on my phone today. I need to find my computer cable. And it just helped me to stay focused. I think that's the thing, is whenever you first get into it. And so I was able to relax much sooner than normal.
Yeah. I'm also really curious. So when you're focused on that bottom part of your body, the part that's sort of, well, I don't want to give away how I feel, or there is a way that my mind feels when I'm focused on the lower part of my body, when I'm focused on my seat, and it's very different from when I'm focused on my crown. And I'm curious, did anyone notice any kind of difference there? Was that interesting at all to anyone?
I took up running a lot recently, so my ankles and stuff are sore, so I don't think I could relate. But yeah, I was like, oh wow, my left ankle really hurts.
Oh no, so sorry. And you're moving.
So yeah, it's all over now, so it's good. Thank you.
Suzanne?
It always
Did you-
helps me to focus on my lower spine and the way I'm sitting, because I always notice I'm holding tension there because I'm trying to sit properly with my upper body, and then I notice I'm holding tension in my lower body. So when we do the body scan, it helps me become aware of that and release the tension, and it leads to a much better meditation. Also, I keep my back straight, like I think it's Venerable Katie, she says, like a string of pearls, your spine. And that has helped me so much to get the relaxation. And the whole body scan is just tremendously important to me. Thank you for bringing that up.
Anybody else? I know I feel, even saying the word grounded, there's, I think Paula, I think a few people have mentioned, our minds get so busy. And I feel that quality more like when I'm focusing on the crown of my head. I feel more of that wanting to almost jump out, for lack of a better descriptor. It's very personal, but when I'm, focused on that lower half, that grounded, I feel more stable and grounded. I've had many teachers say almost, imagining like that you're a doll and along your spine is a string, right? And it's kind of being pulled from the top and pulled from the bottom, right? And there's something really nice about that, I think, analogy. I often will kind of like visualize, and it's great in terms of, we'll talk a little bit about posture. It's come up a couple times. But before that, kind of talking about what this meditation is, there's two different kinds of meditation, and they're related to, what it is that we're trying to accomplish with meditation, right? So one is the stabilization meditation, or stabilization of our mind. We're really trying to create like a platform of stability. And that's what a lot of these initial exercises are about, or so calming the mind enough and getting some sort of stability there, where we're not constantly distracted. I have to say, after many years of meditation, I still find myself often distracted by various things, right? And so that's what we're trying to do, is get a mind that can stay put. And then analytical meditation, just as it sounds, it's where, there's so many things we're trying to develop some understanding or insight or qualities. And then you can see the relationship, right, between the analysis and that stable platform, right? And some of you have probably heard, things like words like vipassana or shine, shamatha, like those kinds of terms. Those are about this stability, and then that insight, that analysis that kind of goes on top of that. So we're trying to develop, when I talked earlier, just briefly, about like the pot that's leaking, that concentration that can hold a thought or an idea or an awareness, right? And keep that, hold that. So that's one, those are, some of the goals that we're trying to do with our meditation practice. And then, introspection, where we are checking our own mind, the quality, not just of our, where is our body, that kind of awareness, but what's our state of mind, right? And when we start talking, and I guess now is a good time to start talking a little bit about our posture. And in this course, we'll the handout I think you have talks about the 7 steps or the 7 aspects of your posture, but often there is an 8th. If you ever hear where they say, 8-point posture, and the 8th there is breath. And one of the reasons, the breath and the mind really are very closely linked. And so you'll notice if you get upset or you're very distracted, your breath will often become more rapid, right? So these things are very closely linked. So it's also an incredible skillful method to have us start out by following that breath and becoming aware of that breath and putting our mind on that breath, because the mind and the breath do naturally go together, right? So in terms of posture, there are classically 7 points of posture that we start with. So, and the first is what do you do with your legs, right? I'm sure, and if you've done yoga, I'm sure you've either attempted or you do full lotus or have done full lotus. There was a time when that was the posture that I held often in meditation. Then it moved to half lotus. Now it's cross-legged, but ideally this full and again, so without getting into too much, this is an introductory course, but if you've dabbled at all in yoga, then you have some concept of chakras and the central channel. And so the posture is, again, pretty scientifically dictated in what's going to be most conducive, right, to allow that flow. So legs. So if you can do full lotus, I would say that probably most people can't, and many people who try are going to be more distracted than anything else. So be aware that that's an ideal posture, and we can talk more specifically if you've got certain challenges and you want to try doing that. But very, the most important thing is really that you're sitting straight, right? And that you're comfortable enough that you're not distracted. So whether it's full lotus, half lotus, cross-legged, frankly, whether you're sitting in a chair, for many people, and especially as we get older, it's much more comfortable and much more conducive to a good meditation that you are comfortable. So sitting in a chair really works for many people. Then you've got your arms. So you want your shoulders kind of on an even plane and relax, not tense, not clenched together. Your hands, you putting your left hand in your lap and your right hand on top, and kind of very, very, I don't know if you can see that. I'm unnaturally holding it up, but sort of, I'm sure you've seen sort of teardrop or like a flame shape, hand resting, comfortably, not too close to your body. You want to have air be able to circulate there, and that's for comfort as well. So that's the position to have your arms and hands. And you'll get a handout if you don't already have it on this, but also I'm happy to give more or less detail, kind of, I guess we'll figure out our place in terms of how much detail we want to get into. But I will also say that I find, and forgive me, Venerable, I have to say as a menopausal woman, I get warm. So sometimes actually I have to move my hands and put them on my knees, and that helps as well. And then just very gently touching your thumb and forefinger together, again, relaxed. So there is the classic meditation posture, which is ideal. And then there's variations that are going to hopefully help you be comfortable enough that you will continue your meditation practice. Your back and your spine being straight, I mentioned that's really key. That is the most important aspect of your posture. And actually the other, like sitting full lotus, you'll notice if you can do it, that your back naturally straightens out, right? So often, we have, if you're not in a chair, meditation cushions also do this, like they lift your behind a little bit and then naturally kind of help your legs drop and it sort of helps your spine to be straight. So you can think of your, spinal cord kind of just being stacked up nice and straight. Not rigid, but straight. I love the, like a string, sort of like a string coming up and down along your spine, sort of. We've talked about legs, arms, back, and spine being the most important thing. Eyes are another another thing. So many people meditate with their eyes closed. And I think, quite frankly, for a beginner meditator, and even for myself, with the screen in front of me, it was easier to have my eyes closed than to have my eyes in the normal posture, which would be sort of slightly closed, kind of gazing slightly down, not focused on anything. But with this light and the computer in front of me, I found myself focusing on that. So closing my eyes worked better in this situation. And I think for many people, closing their eyes works really well. The problem with that is that it can, typically we close our eyes and then we have like this habitual shutdown where we get drowsy and sleepy. So the ideal situation would be to kind of be somewhere where there's not anything busy in front of you. So, maybe something that's just one solid color or print, and where you can sort of gaze without really looking, if that makes sense. And we can talk about that too. Kind of gaze slightly down in front of you. That's really ideal for keeping you aware and alert, and not getting too drowsy. But again, it's super personal in terms of play your own ability. Like the entire Buddhist path is such a custom job, right? And we're always at different places. Even the same person can be at different places at different times in terms of our ability. So keep in mind, though, that what you're looking at or not looking at is really important in meditation. And then, your jaw and your mouth. So not having your teeth clenched, but having them, a little, your lips touching, very lightly touching, your teeth not exactly touching, but together, your mouth closed, your tongue, which is another aspect of the posture, just very lightly at the palate of your mouth. So where it feels, I would say it feels very natural, like just a natural relax, closing your mouth, no tension in here. Your lips just very lightly together. Your teeth together, but not clenched. So my teeth don't exactly touch like that. And then having your tongue just resting lightly on your upper palate. And one of the things that does is really helps you not to have to swallow very often. So when you get into deep meditation, or if you've been meditating for a while, you'll find that swallowing is very disruptive. It feels almost like an earthquake. It's that disruptive when you're in a deep meditation state. So one of the things you're doing there is curbing how much saliva you're producing. And then you want your head to be, again, sort of on an even plane. So straight. I'll tell you, and I think it's because when my mind wanders, I start looking up. My head starts to tilt up. Usually if we get drowsy, then our head tilts down. So trying to just, when you initially sit down, just becoming aware and, of, again, kind of having your face forward and your head not up, not down, but just like on an even plane. So that's the general posture of meditation. And then there's also teachings on, having an environment that is conducive to meditation, right? So there are some things that we do typically, and if you take another class on meditation, you'll hear about, some of the things that you do in preparing. And again, it's making things conducive. So the posture is making our body conducive to a meditation session. And some of those preliminaries are about making the environment conducive. So we say, before you meditate, maybe just sort of tidy the space a little bit so that, so you're not distracted. Trying to find a place that's quiet, but we can't always do that, and we can't always control some of the external noise. But as much as we can, as you develop your meditation practice, trying to create an environment that is conducive to that. And again, we can talk more about that as we go. Because what we're looking to do here is not just the meditation, not just the relaxation, right? So we're creating an environment that is sort of as obstacle free as we can possibly create, in terms of like noise and things like that. But what we're doing is providing a place where we can be relaxed enough that we can then sort of take a look at things and become familiar, right? That's what meditation is. It's habituation and familiarity, right? So that's the reason that we're doing Buddhist meditations. Ultimately, that's sort of the purpose, is to be able to cultivate that stability of mind and that ability to then, look at our own mind and tap into our own potential. So gaining insight into how our minds are working. I'm just thinking in terms of my own personal practice. I notice there's so many, side benefits. I would say side benefits. The ultimate benefit that we're going for is, eliminating, if you don't already know this, and you probably do, what we're looking to do is eliminate all our mental afflictions, free ourselves from suffering, and then help every living being. So those are very, very lofty goals. In the interim, though, there's a lot of wonderful practical benefits to a meditation practice that can sort of help provide that motivation and encouragement for us to continue to try, even though it can be quite difficult. The distractions and things, our minds, several people have mentioned how their minds are just very, very busy. So slowing down, and then once you get in the habit of that, looking at how is this affecting my life off the cushion? So I guess, before we kind of do another round of meditation, I'm really interested to hear, because it sounds like everyone on the call has had some experience with meditation. What are some of the benefits that you have experienced off the cushion, right? So doing these meditations on the cushion, and then what do you take from that? If anybody wants to kind of share.
Well, I will share what I take from it. Let's see. I really, really look forward to it, for one thing. And so that's something I take from it. I take happiness from it because I look forward to doing it. So it helps me with getting along with my brother, not arguing with him so much. And also, I teach in school English and English second language, and it really, really helps me with the way I relate to students and just to people in general. I would say it kind of checks me. It helps me have a better attitude.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you mind maybe elaborating a little bit on maybe why you think that is?
Well, I think it's because I'm being connected to something that is very aspirational. It's higher than anything. It's higher than myself by far. I mean, it's completely aspirational. It's something I can connect to. It just feels very positive and inspiring. I feel inspired, and it helps me feel free from suffering. So that in itself is worth a lot,
That's wonderful.
because there's so much suffering. I mean, we suffer every day in our lives, and the suffering in the world is just out of control. So it just helps me to be calmer about all of that. You know, it really helps me in so many ways.
Yeah. When you see like the red face, angry sort of thing, I think when you have a meditation practice and you get confronted with something like that, without a meditation practice, it's so easy to get kind of pulled into that tension or animosity, things like that. When you have that practice and you have that clarity of mind that yourself, then seeing that, you become so aware that it's immense suffering that's behind it, right? And so then I think it creates space to be compassionate, and with your brother or with a family is sort of the classically great example. Those people who maybe know how to push our buttons, right? But when you have a meditation practice, just that awareness, and frankly, it's awareness of yourself. Like when I'm angry, what's going on for me? And it's profound unhappiness, right? And so then seeing that in someone else, when we become more aware of what's happening in our own minds and hearts, then we have an ability to be more open, more gracious, I think better communicators. I think all of those are very real, practical, and sort of immediate results from a meditation practice. Anybody else want to kind of?
Thank you, Bonnie. That was very helpful to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you for being brave enough to share. Anybody else want to share? And you don't have to. I'd like it to feel inclusive and that there's the space to share, but not mandatory.
Although I'm the worst meditator in the universe, I've always been up for it. And in the past, I had the time and the circumstances to be able to do really super long retreats, silent retreats of, months long. And the reason I'm telling you this is for people who've not had that chance. I hope that you will have a chance in the future, because even for someone as useless as me, the results of particularly silence and really extended, I'm talking about, 6, 7, 8 hours a day of sitting, you inevitably, despite yourself, regardless of how useless you are, you get extraordinary results just through the practice, just by being there. So yeah, that's just a note of encouragement to all the useless ones out there.
Well, if you're doing 6, 7, 8 hours of meditation, that's hardly useless. If I sat for 6, 7, 8 hours, I might get 2 hours of real meditation out of it. And that's just, I hope that's not discouraging, but that's just me sort of being, real about my experience, like very challenging, unless I'm in a retreat situation, impossible to do that kind of meditation. But it's interesting, you said, about having the time to meditate. And I think I need to remind myself, quite frankly, that I don't have the time not to meditate. And certainly that's true in an ultimate sense. And I think, we can all relate to that ultimate truth. But also on a just daily practical, from a practical perspective, like when you start the day with meditation and then you get up, like the clarity and the ease with which you can accomplish things. It's a time, I find it's a time saver. And I have to remind myself of that, though. It's not always top of mind, but I certainly can tell there's a qualitative difference. And I think a quantitative difference on how much I accomplish in a day when I meditate and a day when I don't. So I think sometimes, we're rushing to do things, and stopping and pausing gives us the clarity to be so much more effective. But certainly, I would say anybody, you're here, not worthless. And I know, we all have a tendency to be really self-deprecating. And I have to admit, I said it, 6-8 hours of sitting, and I would maybe get to, maybe if I was super inspired, 3 hours of meditation out of that. A lot of the time my mind would probably be wandering. It's really challenging. But I think well worth the effort and the time. Anybody else want to add anything before we maybe move into another meditation?
I guess for me, I just like to, kind of going back to what you said, I've learned to pause before hitting the inbox. I work from home full time. And so first thing, is very easy to just go into the office in the morning and the emails are there. And my job is good, I like it, but there is a lot of conflict resolution. And so in that, I've just started to, with my new place, light some incense and just take 5 minutes, not even necessarily seated meditation, but just take those 5 quiet minutes before I kind of dive into the computer, just, let it turn on and things like that. And it's like you all said, it just completely changes your perspective whenever you see other emails, people's point of view, calls, whatever. You approach the day in a totally different way.
So true. So true. Yeah. And, I mentioned earlier that, the 8th point of the posture is the breath. I think anytime where we just sort of pause and, they say class, I think I've heard them teaching, elementary school kids, they say count to 10. They don't say count 10 breaths, but they say count to 10, before you do something or say something, if you're feeling angry. So, watching like, how is my breath? And just sort of stopping and pausing. That's at our morning practice and our daily practice, whether morning, evening, both, whatever that looks like for you, I think helps us later on to kind of draw from that and do sort of like a mini, check-in. And I would say, a mini scan your body, like really take a look, like how am I feeling in my skin? What's going on? And then what's happening with my breath, and, counting some breaths, super practical. So like, these are methods, like amazingly skillful methods that only an enlightened being would come up with, that have, short-term wonderful benefits, and then long-term, can help us to achieve our ultimate goals. So I want to take a little bit of time now to do another meditation, and sort of on your own, maybe start with an abbreviated version of scanning your body, and then counting. I think I'll go through like doing some rounds of counting our breath, like count to 10, and then if you get distracted, come back. And then we're going to do an exercise, and you should have, I think, did you, Venerable, did you put, yes, all the course materials. So handout number 3 is this bare awareness. And it's just that. It's just, they say like a gatekeeper or a watcher. So being the watcher or being the gatekeeper. So noticing what's happening with your mind and your body. But so actually, I think maybe what I'll do is I'll describe it briefly now, and then we'll do it. That way I won't talk as much, because I think that can also be a distraction. But what we want to do is just watch, like a thought comes in your mind, just without judgment. Notice, be aware of what's going on, but don't get on that train. Don't follow that thought, and don't judge. Don't, because often the train is, I'm distracted, I can't meditate. That's the kind of train that we go on, right? I'll be honest, I've found myself meditating on a virtual object, and then even on a virtual object, my mind will then start going, and it's a nice train. It feels good, but it's off the actual object. I'm not holding the object. So here we're just kind of watching our mind, just generally, what is it doing, and just being aware of it, and without any kind of judgment. So you hear this, the thoughts come, just let them go. And that's really what this meditation is, but it's just being aware of what's happening in your body and your mind. So if you want to get in your version of the 7-point posture, or as close as you can, and then maybe once more, let's just personally bring back the motivation of why you're doing this class, why we're all here right now. And then let's take a few minutes to scan our body. And in the future, if you want to talk more about that, we can do that. But maybe now, just to the best of your understanding, go through starting at the bottom and working your way up and back down. Now, if you want to bring your attention to your breath, and let's count some breaths in and out. Keeping your mind focused on the tip of your nostril. And now there's that part of your mind that is watching you, counting your breaths. That watcher, that gatekeeper. Just continue to focus on your breath, but then be aware of any thoughts that come to your mind. And maybe just label them distraction or discomfort or thought. But don't judge the thought and don't go with the thought. Just be aware and let it go. And again, when you're ready, if you want to broaden your attention to be back in the room. So I'm curious, what did it feel like? Was it challenging, or what did it feel like to be sort of the watcher or the gatekeeper? Were you able to do that with ease, or was that challenging? Anybody want to comment at all? I can say for myself, I find it easier to be the thinker than the watcher. But one of the things that's very interesting is to, and I think this particular exercise is very helpful for separating out this idea of I, right? And so often it's I am my thoughts. But when you do this exercise, I think you get a very real sense for that, that's not true, right? Like these thoughts seem to come, from nowhere. And if we don't hop on the train of thought, and I love that analogy, train of thought. For me, it's so apt, it's the train that wants to like pull me somewhere. They just go. And we get a real sense of I think being beyond, I'm doing a terrible job of expressing this, but beyond the thought, and being able to sort of separate from that as even like an identity, becomes really obvious that crazy things can come up. I remember I was at a teaching with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. This is many, many years ago. And I'm talking to someone during the break, and he's like, all I could think about was food the whole time. And, and then trying so hard because the judging mind, right? So you're in a situation where you're trying to be meditative, and you're listening and trying to sort of digest or think about, hear and process like these valuable teachings, and then your mind is thinking about food. But then it becomes sort of monstrous, because then you're thinking about the fact that you're thinking about food, and you're judging yourself for that. And I think that's often what we're doing. So just getting in that practice of like being able to be aware that the thoughts are coming, and we actually don't have to go along with them, right? We can just sort of notice them, we be aware of them, but we don't have to become them, if that makes sense. That's just sort of some of my personal experience and take. Anybody else have any thoughts on this? Just bare awareness, just watching what your mind is doing.
I was completely guilty of the food thing.
Just now? Or just generally? Yeah, but I guess another thing, when it comes to a conducive place, not near where someone's cooking something delicious would maybe be another thing if you're hungry. No, but were you able to just notice, like, okay, hunger, or whatever the thought was, and let it go? Or what was that?
Oh, that's a good point. I think so. You realize that you're hungry, but you wanted to be focused. So it was different. Oh, that's a good point, because I think we've all been there. We're doing something and we're going to finish it before we go eat. And it was different than that, where it was more of it was kind of passing by, opposed to it was there and you're like, okay, I'm going to do that next. You're just like, no, I don't want to do that now. So please just go.
That's really, that is this meditation. It is just that awareness of like, I notice this, and making a note, being aware and then letting it go. Anybody else want to share? And bless you. I think I saw a sneeze there. Anybody else feel like sharing anything at all? And again,
Yeah, I like the watcher. I like the watcher because it's so helpful to the watcher.
Yeah.
Lets things go. Just lets them go. So that's a useful thing for me.
Yeah. And again, just that habit of seeing thoughts seemingly arise from nowhere. And then if we're not engaging with them and judgment is a way of engaging, then they just dissipate, right? And often another one will pop in to take its place. But it's really interesting to be that watcher. So for this week, I think hopefully everybody has all the handouts. So if we could just for, the next week commit to spending at least, 10 or 15 minutes a day, sort of doing these exercises. I suggest, if it's possible, morning meditation, it's a wonderful way to start the day. Meditation is a wonderful way to end the day as well. Kind of has the same effect in terms of, better quality sleep, just clarity of mind. So, there may be one or the other time, but ideally, I would challenge you, if you're interested in maybe trying to do both. It doesn't have to be very long. And then also see, is there a difference in the quality of meditation for you if it's in the morning or at night? Or how do those experiences feel different? And just doing, just the bare attention, or even counting the breath. I think, as you can already see, these are exercises that build on each other. And this is in terms of, providing that platform of stability, the stabilization kind of meditation that these are. So if you can commit to doing that this week, and then I'd love to check in at the beginning of next week on kind of what your experiences were. And then right now, so there's prayers that we typically do. And I think it's good to kind of maybe chat about them more. I don't know who's going to come next week, and I don't really know how much experience or how comfortable you guys are like doing prayers. I think for a course like this, it's sometimes nice to just not necessarily start with that, and kind of allow you the space to, ease into that as you like. But I think one of the, and I'll say the essence of the prayers that we do concluding teachings are to dedicate. And the idea here, I'm sure we all have some, whatever our understanding is of karma, there's an idea that what we do has results. And so, when my son was little, I used to say, if you do something good, now it's like having a little bank account, and you can spend your money on a ice cream sandwich, or you can save up for a bike. But the good thing about Buddhist dedication is you kind of get both. You get your ice cream sandwich and you get your bike. So you get your, my day is going more smoothly. My interactions with people are more peaceful. I'm able to concentrate. I'm more effective. You get all of that in the short term. But the dedication is saying, let what I've done here today, just the fact that we're here, may this ripen as a better meditation practice, as a liberation from suffering from myself, and then may it enable me to benefit every living being and become an enlightened being myself. So that's really what the dedication is. And then the other thing that we do, so in your own way, I guess I'm sort of offering up, dedicate. like be happy. So that's also another part of dedication, is like the rejoicing. Like, be happy that you did this tonight instead of, whatever else you could be doing, or streaming on Netflix, or there's so many things we could be investing our time and energy in. And you've made a decision to do this. And I just want to say, it's not trivial. This is part of having this precious human life, is meeting the teachings and trying to put them into practice. So it's actually a huge, wonderful virtue. So be happy about it. And then, dedicate it towards your own capacity increasing up to and including enlightenment and liberating every living being. And then the other thing we do is prayers for our teachers, for our teachers' long lives. And teachers are very super personal. And, all I can say is, when I first met the Dharma, like it's there's teachers who appeal to you. My first teacher ever was teacher Rinpoche Rinpoche, who looked like this beautiful grandfather. There's a picture actually somewhere that Mark Gatter, one of the old directors of Zen and Medicine Buddha, took, and like his eyes are sparkling and he just looks like he's just filled with love, and he was radiating peace. And I had a like spiritual love affair, like, oh, this must be my Lama, this must be, because we're always looking for a teacher. And then and I had a very strong connection with him. And then Lama Zopa Rinpoche was not an easy teacher, and he came and he would teach. I hope you all get an opportunity to experience Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He's amazing, but he was not easy. My first teachings went until like 6 or 7 in the morning, and I found myself sending him psychic messages, asking him to please let us go home. So I say that to say he wasn't easy. But, after some time, I was actually experiencing some challenges. And I just had this strong feeling like, oh, that's my Lama, and joyfully, the challenges become less challenging. But the reason that we pray for, so whether that's your teacher or not, or whether it's an FPMT teacher or a teacher in another tradition, it's a super personal. It should be personal, and it should be something that you don't feel rushed into. I mean, there are actually a whole bunch of teachings, like you should take 12 years, you should check them out, to know that they work for you. And what that means is they work on your mind. Like you're a different person, you're a better person for having met them. I mean, in a most basic way. So when we pray for their long lives, what we're praying for is just to have the good fortune to meet beings who inspire us and give us instruction that we can then apply and feel those changes in ourselves. So we're giving thanks for the teachings. Ultimately, Gautama Buddha, Lord Buddha's teachings, but they're given to us through these beings who we have the good fortune to meet. So I would say, rather than doing a formal prayer, just maybe take a second to feel some gratitude for whoever it is that helps you move and change your mind, for your understanding of the Dharma, and all of those beings who've kind of helped you along that path and are continuing to help you. Like, may they have long lives. And what that really means is, may I continue to have the opportunity to meet those beings and to get these precious teachings. So having that thought, I thank you. Actually, I thank you so much. It has been a very long time since I taught, and the privilege of sharing this with you and being in this space together is amazing opportunity for me, and I'm super grateful. And thank you. And I hope that you will tune in next week, same bat time. Oh gosh, I'm showing my age. Same bat channel. And thank you, Venerable, for putting all of this together. Thank you all for being here. And yeah, thank you.